warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable Chairman of the Zain Hasan Genggong Islamic Boarding School Foundation, Kiai Haji Muhammad Hasan Mutawakil Alawa SHMM, Honorable Rector of Unzah Genggong, Associate Professor Dr. Abdul Aziz Wahab PMAG, Honorable Head of the English Study Program, Dr. Zainuddin MPD, Honorable Thesis Supervisor, Mr. Ferry Ferdianto MPD, and Miss Nina Agus Haryati MH. Respected to our lecturers and dear all of my friends. First of all, let us express our highest praise and gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his blessing and guidance so that we are able to gather here today in good health and condition. It is a great honor for me to stand before all of you. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Nuriatul Maftuhah. On this valuable occasion, I would like to present my research proposal seminar as part of the academic requirements of the English study program. I sincerely hope that this presentation will run smoothly, and I truly welcome any suggestion and constructive feedback for the improvement of my research. Today, I would like to present my research proposal entitled Students' Perception of Enjoyable Listening Activities in a Low Exposure EFL Classroom. This research proposal consists of three chapters. Chapter 1 is Introduction, Chapter 2 is Review of Related Literature, and Chapter 3 is Research Method. Okay, in Chapter 1, I explain the background of the study, focus of the study, statement of the problem, objectives, significance, and previous studies. Background of the study. Listening is one of the fundamental skills in English learning. It provides important input for other skills such as speaking, vocabulary development, and pronunciation. However, in the Indonesian EFL context, students have limited exposure to English outside the classroom. English is mostly used only during lesson hours. Because of this limited exposure, listening often becomes difficult, stressful, and sometimes boring for students. Many previous studies focus on improving listening achievement of teaching techniques. However, limited attention has been given to students' perception of listening activities themselves. Therefore, it is important to explore how students perceive enjoyable listening activities in low exposure EFL classroom. Next, statement of the problem. The research questions are: first, what are student perception of enjoyable listening activities in a low exposure EFL classroom? And second, what types of listening activities are considered most enjoyable by students in such a classroom setting? Next, objectives of the study. The objectives of this study are: first, to explore student perception of enjoyable listening activities in a low exposure EFL classroom. Second, to identify the types of listening activities that are considered most enjoyable by students in a low exposure EFL classroom. Okay, next, significance of the study. The study provides both theoretical and practical contribution. Theoretically, it contributes to the understanding of affective factors in EFL listening, such as motivation, enjoyment, and engagement. Practically, the results are expected to be beneficial for students, English teachers, future researchers, and the school. Okay, next, previous studies. Several previous studies discuss listening difficulties, anxiety, and affective factors. However, limited research specifically explore students' perception of enjoyable listening activities in low exposure secondary classrooms. Therefore, this attempts to fill that gap. Okay, we're going to move to chapter 2 is review of related literature. In chapter 2, I discussed the theoretical foundation that support this study. This chapter explains five main aspects related to listening and students' perception. First, listening in EFL context. Second, listening of Indonesian EFL learners. Third, affective factors in listening. Fourth, students' perception in language learning. And fifth, enjoyable listening activities in EFL classroom. Okay, next, conceptual framework. There are student perception of enjoyable listening activities in low exposure EFL classroom, listening in low exposure, affective factors, perception, student perception types of enjoyable, and for expected results, there are identification of students' perception, types of enjoyable listening activities, recommendation for better listening practice. This conceptual framework illustrates the flow of the study. The research begins with listening activities conducted in a low exposure EFL classroom. Based on theories of listening and students' perception, the study explores how students perceive listening activities. From these perceptions, the study identifies the types of listening activities considered enjoyable. The findings are expected to provide recommendation for improving listening practices in low exposure EFL classrooms. Next chapter is chapter 3 Research Method. Chapter 3 explains the research methodology. There are research design. In research design, the study used a qualitative descriptive design to explore students' perception in depth. Next, research setting. The research will be conducted at MTS Zainul Irshad. Next, research participants. The participants are students in a low exposure EFL classroom at MTS Zainul Irshad. Next, data collection. Next, data collection. The data will be collected through interviews, classrooms observation, and documentation. Next, data analysis. The data will be analyzed using qualitative analysis procedures, including data reduction, data display, and conclusion drawing. And the last is trustworthiness of the data. The data, to ensure credibility, the study applies triangulation, detailed descriptions, and careful documentation. In conclusion, this research consists of three chapters that systematically explain the background, theoretical foundation, and research methodology of the study. The study aims to explore student perception of enjoyable listening activities and to identify which activities are considered most enjoyable in a low exposure EFL classroom. Thank you for your attention. I'm Nuratul Maftuhah. The last I say, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.